Good morning and happy new year. And I want to welcome you to a secret on how to fight CPS and win. My name is Bob Pace. I'm your host, and the show is being produced by Vincent W. Davis, who is a family law attorney. He's a trial attorney, and his number is 888 and we have guests on from time to time. Also, any of you listeners that want to type in a question, feel free to go ahead and it'll display on the screen, and I'll try to answer it during the show. I have experience with CPS since 2015, and I've been doing this for about 7 years, and so I know it firsthand. And so our guests are from all parts of the country. We ask our guests not to give specific names or specific locations, but it's all right to say what state you're from and so forth, and about your situation, how it got you here, and so forth, like that. So, with that, without further say or further ado, we're going to welcome Amanda Gallio, uh, Gallioco,
Galago. Galago.
Gallego. I'll get it right. Gallico. We're welcome Amanda Gallego. Welcome, and I love to hear your story.
Hi. Um, so a little backstory of how it all started. This happened, I want to say 2021. Um, my son was accused of sexual abuse, and they opened the case. They indicated him. Um, we were in intact service at the time. They switched over to intact. Everything was fine. He was going to counseling. Counseling wasn't going so well. Basically, a counselor was forcing him to say things that weren't true. So DCFS did not like that he wasn't following their rules or doing what they said. Um, and then my other son had gotten sick. He's a type 1 diabetic, and this happened at school. School had called me to come pick him up. I wasn't there fast enough, so they took him to the hospital. They charged me for medical neglect and inadequate supervision because at the time it was COVID season. No kids were allowed in hospitals, nothing. And I am a single mom, basically at home with seven kids at the time. So that's where the inadequate supervision came in, because I left my oldest son and two younger ones in the vehicle in the emergency room, um, parking lot.
Mhm.
I explained the situation. I said I cannot be in here long. My kids are in the car unless you want to go out there and watch them, so forth. No, they didn't want to do that. So I had called my mom to come out. Um, so we got indicated for everything. Um, And then, a month goes by. I just get a random phone call saying it wasn't working out, that I need to give the kids to their father. At the time, we were separated. And I'm like, no, I don't have to. And mind you, this was an investigation, really, still. And so I took my kids to Iowa and left them at my dad's house. And I came back. We're in the state of Illinois. And to get our belongings, or at least what I can grab. Well, they came back. I was on the phone with my attorney. The attorney said if they're there to take your kids, then they have some sort of court order that I had to give them the kids. They were demanding me to tell them where my kids were. I wouldn't give them a specific address. I wouldn't do any of that. So they came back and took the kids. It was a 2-year battle. Um, Finally, when it comes time, the kids coming home, we got stepped back because the foster parent to half the kids, the four younger ones, was in, like, she did not want to give my kids back. Um, she basically told me, had asked me if I really genuinely want my kids back, or do I just want them back because they're my property. She wanted them. The caseworkers were very persistent in wanting us to sign over guardianship or our rights to those particular kids. Um, to that foster parent, which was a relative of mine. Well, we eventually got the kids back home after a while, the struggles, all the threats, and we're still dealing with them to this day. While our case was open, I had gotten pregnant again, and they wanted to know when my baby was due, where I go for my prenatal care, that I had to call them immediately when I had the baby because they were automatically taking the baby.
Yeah, they do that. If you could stop for 1 second, I need to back up a little bit. Um, you mentioned that this originally happened in Illinois, and then you went to Iowa. So the
I
case
took them.
was well, the case started in Illinois, then, right?
Yep.
Okay, and then you said you had 7 children.
Yep.
Okay, of the 7 children, you said the son was first charged with sexual, and then you were charged with neglect. How old are these children? These 7 children?
At the time, my oldest was 10.
Okay, he's the one that got charged with the sexual charges, and that
Hmm.
based on a school counselor.
No, it wasn't a school counselor. It came out because my daughter had told a relative that something happened, um, in which us as parents, we thought maybe she was coached because we also had another teenager living with us that um, did
So
actually,
okay, and so what are the ages? Are they? What's the youngest? What's the youngest age?
at that time,
Yeah.
um, my youngest, at the time of it coming out, my youngest was just born,
Okay,
but
and then your oldest was how old?
he was 10, so it was like 10, 8, 7, 6, 4, 3,
So it
or
sounds like you had
2.
a child every year then. And now
Yeah,
was
pretty
this the same?
much.
Was this the same husband or same
Yeah,
boyfriend? It was the same
yeah.
guy. So you guys just had lots of children. Okay. And then uh when did he break away from the family?
And 21.
No, I meant how old? I mean, how old were your children when he broke
Oh,
away?
um, 11. I mean, the oldest was 11. It was like a year after all
So
of this
he's
stuff, about a
so
year or two
he's only
later.
broken away recently then, right?
Well, we've been back together for the past 3 years.
Okay, so you
So,
got back. So you went
yeah,
apart, and you were raising the children by yourself. You came together, and because of some complaints, and do they call it CPS or what do they call their child protection? Um,
DCFS.
DCS. Okay. And so the DCFS, which is a branch for people that don't know all this, social services is a federal organization that helps out people with a need, either food, housing, clothing. They also look after our children. They have a branch, and in her case is DCFS, and that group is responsible for protecting the children from either abuse or neglect. And in your case, it was neglect, is what you're saying to me, that you as a parent were charged with neglect, or your son was charged, or what was.
Um, our son was charged. He was the only one charged in the beginning. After everything, like with the medical neglect, that's when I was charged.
But how would he charge a young child at 10? Was he 10 at the time?
Yep. They
And
indicated him.
he's a minor. They
Yep.
wouldn't
They
charge
indicated
a
him.
minor. Wow, I just never. That's a new one for me. I mean, I've heard of a lot of stories, but usually it's the parents that get charged, or the sisters, or the grandparents. But it's
Hmm.
never the children get charged. So, um, did they put him into custody or what? What did they do?
They didn't do anything. They put us in intact services where like a worker came out once a week just to see how things are going, and they made him do counseling. So they closed off the DCFS case, but we did intact. And that's when he started the counseling, and they just visit the house once a week.
What's the intake? I've never heard of that terminology. What's that?
They're, in my opinion, they're like DCFS. um I don't, they're no different, to be honest.
Are they
More like,
Are they handled by social services, or are they a different arm of social services, or are they another government agency or a state agency, or
Yeah, it's another agency that works with DCFS. Like, they're supposed to keep families together and help in that situation, um, but not this one.
no, the goal is family reunification. Now this outfit called Tech, and I'm using that abbreviation there, um, but they're just like the DCFS.
Pretty much intact, yeah.
Yeah, the Intech. So the Intech is another organization out there that uh, is it a federal mandate or a state mandate?
I don't know, honestly. I just went along with it.
Oh boy, I wonder if they're using
We weren't
a third
knowledgeable at that
party.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or they use a third party. Now, when your son got accused, did you contact an attorney right away?
No, because they did not take the kids. They just closed out the case and indicated him. And I didn't know that I was able to appeal anything, or they said by doing intact and agreeing to that, then they won't take no kids and we'll just do services. Everyone can stay together. And so I just listened to them.
Yeah. The rule out there for all your listeners is that anytime you get approached by somebody from social services that deals with protecting our children, you got to be very, very careful because what you say can be used against you. And I hate to tell you that everybody I've been talking to is that it's an organization that makes billions of dollars. It's a money making thing. The longer they keep you in the care of the state and the federal, the more money they can get. And they hope to get it into foster care, which will even give them more money up until their age of 18. So it's a money making thing. That's their give. It's supposed to be family reunification. We're supposed to um, be, and again, you're guilty until you're proven innocent in the child protection services. You are guilty before until you're proven innocent. Where most court of laws, you are innocent until you're proven guilty, and so that's you're a downhill battle. So anybody can make any kind of charges, whether true or not, and they're going to believe those charges. They're going to say, okay, they're guilty, and so it's up to them through their investigation to determine, and hopefully they're a good outfit that wants family reunification, and that means they need to give help. You need to make up a plan of where the kids are going to stay, who's going to take care of the kids. Now you mentioned that you have seven of them, and that is a lot for handling one person to handle. I mean, I have only six, and it was like different stages of the life. I have an older group and a younger group, but even the three young group, that was a lot of work. And I had a full time wife and a full time father here, and we were dealing with her kids. In my case, it was where I had lost a job, and so I didn't have the finances. And if I'd known about getting an attorney, I would have. That was the key thing. If you don't get an attorney, it's like you're a doctor trying to do surgery on your body. You may not know everything is know about the medical things. You always get a doctor. Same thing we have to do when we get involved in legal matters. We have to get a attorney to work up strategies and to have you go through it. And speaking of attorneys, we have Vincent W. Davis here. His number is 888-888-6582, and he'll gladly talk to you for 30 minutes up to an hour at no charge to work out strategies. And if you wanted to retain him, he's also interested in that. He works in all different states. So he's not only from California, but he works in all different states. You're the second caller from Illinois, by the way. I had a grandparent from Illinois that called in the other day, and so uh, that tells me a little bit about the Illinois and how they handle their kids. So now, when your son, you guys had a plan and so forth, and you're together. Did your husband disappear then, or did he disappear later, or how did he play in a role with you?
He had left just before the kids were taken into care. So like he was aware of the intact services and everything like that, but a few months before they were taken, that's when we went separate ways.
Now, why were you guys doing that? Is it because of what was going on or something else?
No, just our own problems.
Oh boy. And now you're back together with them
Yep, and we had another baby.
and you have another baby. Okay, so you're up to 8 babies now. And well, at least with the same guy, there have been mothers I've talked to. They had 5 different husbands or 5 different boyfriends, and so at least there's the same father. Now he's back here. Is he helping you? Is he working with
Oh
you and
yeah.
taking care of your 8 kids?
Yeah, we work together. So our kids returned home. It'll be a year next month. So they've been home since February officially. Our case ended in June. However, we've had several still DCFS calls under investigation right now currently.
What are they
Um
about?
so the investigation right now, my oldest son had gotten into a fight with his girlfriend. Um
Now he was 10 at the time, so is he older now?
yeah, he's 15.
Okay, so he got in a fight with his girlfriend, and he's 15. Okay, the same boy that had the sexual charges
Yeah.
against him. Okay.
Yes, he got into a fight with his girlfriend. I got a restraining order against the girlfriend. No
Oh
trespass. Like,
boy, his
yeah,
girlfriend was that kind of wild. I can't believe that. Illinois, I thought it was a very conservative group of people. I would expect something like that from California, but Illinois, no, I didn't expect that.
yeah. So, I'm not sure why DCFS is involved. Currently, and they're trying to say another inadequate supervision because one of the children, the 4-year-old, was here with him. Um, I'm like, he's at a legal age. He can be home. She's 17
Yeah, I
and
understand that. The problem is what's missing the part is like it's the same thing with illegal drugs. When you have children under the age of 18, and I'm not saying 12 or 15, you as a parent can't have things like illegal drugs being done. You can't argue between other parents. If you sit there and argue, that's domestic violence. Arguing is domestic
uh,
violence. And you can't, it's really hard with disciplining your children and so forth because you got to be careful there. And so, um, if the girlfriend and your son are arguing and you got other young children around, they're going to get involved. They're going to get involved because their goal is to protect the children from neglect or abuse. And it is very abusive if a child who's, say, 4 or 5 has to hear people arguing or bickering. If it should be, you go out and do a timeout. I've told people that adults can get timeouts. It doesn't be for young children, adults. If you're having trouble with your employer and you guys are getting close to a heating argument, then take time out. Say, look, I need a break. Time out. I got to think about what's been said. We'll go back to it. And that's the hardest thing sometimes for adults. You get caught up in a heated argument and you don't want to lose, you don't want to win or whatever it is, and we don't think about the children around us, the young children. They may be in a different room, different part of the house, but it's wrong. You cannot argue in front of your children. You cannot quarrel or bickering or anything like that. There's a thing called alienation. You got to be careful about that. You can't pit one parent against the other parent, and some parents do that because they
hmm
try to alienate their children from the other parent, by either saying bad things about them or telling them they're no good or something like that. You can't even do that around. If you have something negative to say somebody, you got to keep it to yourself. You cannot do it like there. You could go to counseling. You could go to therapy to talk about it, but you really around family members, it's got to resemble. Not all families are happy, but it has to resemble some type of a safe atmosphere. And the supervision comes into play because you can't have younger kids. You have to be over the age 18 to supervise a child, by the way. 12-year-old isn't old enough to supervise. Yes, 12-year-olds can divorce their parents and become uh, legally separated from their parents and their brothers and sisters. But at 15, you're still responsible until he turns 18. You're
hmm
responsible, for instance, if he gets in trouble with the law and stuff like that. So, um, and then I think driving wise, I don't know if you can drive. Sometimes they have it to 21, depending on the state. You can't drive another minor with you in the car. But anyway, so you have this case open up with your his girlfriend, who I guess at 17 is very violent. I'm surprised that a girl would feel that way about him. He must be really doing something awful. Um, has have you guys? Do you have an attorney now to deal with it? Are you not dealing with the attorney or what?
Um, we if it comes down to it, yes, we will have an attorney. When it comes to see, I don't, right now it's just an investigation. Um,
Well,
she
you
she has
should
not
get
talked to the kids yet.
okay. You should get an attorney involved. The reason being
Hmm.
is that it's going to make your life a whole lot better if you know the strategies. I know it's cost money, but it's money is well worth spent. And so when you have these situations, you need to know the strategies because I didn't. I thought social services and the branch of social services that deals with children, CPS in our case in California, I thought they were good guys. I thought they were honest, and I thought the word family reunification, they meant it. But when my daughter was taken from me back in 2015, taken from both the mother and the father, we never saw her. She was 12 at the time. And that's the
Hmm.
last time we saw her, and it's sad because we didn't have monitored visits with her. We didn't have, and there's no family reunification as far as I'm concerned. My civil rights were violated, but that's a whole separate issue. But um, you need to get an attorney who will lay out the strategies because he would have told me not to speak to him. My problem is I opened it up and told him everything, and they got the police involved. And when they get the police involved, it makes it 10 times worse because I hate to say it, somehow the police and the social services love to have all this festive stuff. To me, if they didn't make money, then maybe they would be a little bit more friendlier. But right now, their goal is that how can we take the children into custody? How can we break apart the family? How can we destroy you? And that's sad because you have a heart. I mean, you having 7 children. There's no law that says you can't have 7 children or 8 children or whatever, but there is with you cannot if you're under investigation with the agency that protects the children, then you cannot have any more babies. They'll take them away the day the child is born. It's a traumatic experience to put you through as a mother that you can't even breastfeed the child. The child is taken from you literally in the room that the child is born. And I don't know if you knew that or not, but an attorney would tell you that. And I'm not
Well, we
trying to say,
knew,
okay, you knew,
but we
but
got away with it.
oh, okay, well, yeah, but see, our society is the laws, and you may think it's like, well, I speed all the time. I never get caught speeding. Eventually, there will be that person that'll pull you over for speeding, and then suddenly stuck with a $500 fine or something, and then you have your days put in court, and it's going to interfere with your jobs. It's going to interfere with everything. So, uh,
It did. So when we actually had our baby, I had her in a different state. Um, so then Illinois wouldn't have any knowledge of her.
yeah, you're right. That works.
And we did have attorneys at the time with our case open, and he's like, well, you cross your fingers and hope that you are able to get to a different state if you were to go into labor. And well,
Yeah, because if you get
we were
stopped
lucky.
if you get stopped by a police or pulled over, you're right. You're lucky.
So when our daughter was born, um, we had arrangements to do a guardianship, and we had a court date set and everything, and we had an attorney in the other state. So we did that. We were waiting for our court date, and DCFS actually set out a warrant on our baby.
Yeah, they will. They will. If they don't
Um,
know, they'll put in a warrant.
the warrant was just basically baby and then our last names. They didn't know the sex, they didn't know the birth date, they didn't know nothing.
Right.
Um, we've had the sheriffs to our house, circling our house, banging on windows, doors, everything,
They have to get a
trying to.
court order to come in. So you're right.
Yeah, so no one answered. So we kept our baby safe. We went to court in the meantime for our original case. We had to wait at least 5 months before they dropped the warrant because they had no they couldn't find her. They even tried in Indiana, finding every relative they can of mine, sending CPS there. One actually called me, and I'm like, I'm not showing you my baby. I'm not telling you where she is. We will deal with the consequences.
You
But
don't
right,
have to talk to them, by the way. There's no law that says you have to talk to them.
right. So we didn't give them any information. And then since we didn't give information, our caseworker and her supervisor actually called me and threatened me. Because at that time only one child was home, which was my oldest. And she's like, well, what are you going to do with your son? I'm like, well, what can I do? I'm like, you're the one that has guardianship of him. I'm like, I can't move him. Like, he's still a ward of the state. She's like, well, because you need to figure that out when you're sitting behind bars. I'm like, what am I going to go to jail for? Who's going to arrest me? So it was a back and forth battle between them and
Wow.
myself, over the baby. They even reached out to the foster mom that had four of our children, and asking her if she would take the baby if they got her. And I'm like, that's not an option. I'm like, I have first right. Like, it's my right. I could pick where my children go, anyways, and she's not an option.
Well, no, she is an option because she was born when you had a case in place. So by the law, they
Mhm.
can take your baby. And with a warrant, that's not fun either because if a policeman pulls you over and finds there's warrants on you, they impound your car, they take you right to jail.
Right.
You're lucky.
We
You're lucky.
understood.
I know you understand, but you're lucky you did not have to go in jail. Jail's not very pleasant.
Well, we told the caseworker, and we've actually told the sheriff department. Um, I'm like, well, since that warrant wasn't specific, I'm like, let's say that I had a friend's baby here. I'm like, do you guys want to play 50-50 gamble? You take the wrong baby, and then that's a lawsuit for you kidnapping somebody else's baby. And so the cops, they didn't want no involvement of that, so they kicked it back over to the courthouse.
Yeah.
They didn't know what to do, because that's how we actually were as parents. Like, we pretty much exercise as many rights as we can. And a lot of times, yeah, a lot of sarcasm going on, made them mad. But in the end, our baby was safe and never seen the system.
So where you are your cases over or are they still in progress?
That case is over. However, with this new investigation, they're treating it as if we're still under the DCFS care. Um, they're calling around, at the previous foster home where my three boys were, asking if my mom's living there and who's living there, and they um, telling us that, oh, my son can't be left alone. Um, and we're like, we're not under DCFS care or supervision, so they really can't tell us who can live where and who's with who, because it's really none of their business.
What is your attorney strategy wise to do? Nothing?
So since the case was closed and it was over and the kids were returned home, I no longer have the attorney.
Okay.
Um, but now we have this new stuff going on. I'm gonna have to eventually give him a call and go from there. I know she said that she's coming back because I would not allow her in my house, and I would not allow her to speak to the kids. And then she asked if the baby was here. And I'm like, I'm not answering any questions when it comes to my baby. And I'm like, she has a legal guardian. If you want to know anything about the baby, then you ask the legal guardian. And she's basically telling me that I can't have my baby. She's like, well, why do you have the baby if you have a legal guardian? I'm like, because she's my baby. Um, so she says it's weird
Are
that
you
we're
are
hiding
you the legal
something.
guardian? Are you consider yourself the legal guardian?
No,
Is that
no. A relative of mine is the legal guardian still, and she asked why we have that, and I said, to
for
protect her from you.
protection? Yeah, right. Protection.
Yeah, that's what I told her. I'm like, to protect her from you. We're actually in progress. I'm Native American. I
Are you
have my
registered?
papers.
Yeah, if you're registered with a tribe, the tribal can intervene, and you don't have to deal with the federal government issues on this because there's something that people don't aware of is that the tribes take care of their own. For instance, it's
Hmm.
against the law for federal uh, governments to interfere. I know this firsthand because I'm a Lakota Sioux, and at the
Same.
Rosebud Reservation, um, if they're suspected, if you're a tribal member and you have suspected case with CPS, or in your case, DCSF, um, then they can be turned over to the tribe, and the tribe will handle it. And believe me, the tribe is not making money because they don't have the funding that the state or the federal government gives them. So they don't have that. They don't have the biggest power. But I don't know if a tribe is better. But if you have that, then all you have to do is tell your caseworker that you're a registered tribal member. This is the name of the tribe. They'll contact the tribe and verify that you are a registered member, and then your kids can be turned over to the tribe.
Right. Well, I'm in the process of that. I had to do a whole bunch of paperwork because my father wasn't legally on my birth certificate, and so I had to go through that process.
Mm,
And now all that's done. Just sending it out and playing the waiting game for that to all be done. So we have that once that's all set in stone.
okay. So you're now in a waiting game with this, and right?
Yep.
So, what can you share with our listeners of what you went through? I mean, in your case, you seem to how somehow circumvent the. It's interesting how this whole thing came into play. And your 15-year-old son, you still don't have guardian of him.
No. I mean, all the kids are in our care. We're the legal guardians except for our youngest. Um, we were
Mm-hmm.
actually planning to move away, so we didn't have to worry about any other legal um, getting guardianship or dealing with DCFS or anything like that. But they love us. Um, but as far as the experience of dealing with, it's trauma. It's literally been trauma. Our 4-year-old, it was when he came home, he was scared of everything, and that's because he was locked in dark rooms, in his car seat. They used to put him in the corner when this is when he was 2, and with their bodies pressed against him, and she was a heavier woman. Um, and then they used to lock my now 5-year-old outside and in the basement.
Who is
Um,
this? The
the
foster.
foster parents.
Did you make a complaint to the police department?
Yes.
To
I
the
made
police
we made
department.
Yep. Yep, their father
Okay.
called in several times on everything, and then
And what did the
when
police do?
no, nobody did nothing. We kept calling for every
They should
single
have called
incident.
the. They should have called the Child Protection Service, the DCF.
We
F.
did.
And
We did.
no, I meant the police should have called them, and you should have followed up with a phone call and say, "Policeman, have you done anything about this?"
Nope, they did a
Hey,
well-being checks and nothing came about of it. Um and when she got a new boyfriend, his dog was biting my kids, and like we
wow.
even reported all that. My older son, because they separated the kids, the three were with my sister's father, and like my oldest son was running away, and they wanted to put him in a juvenile center, and they
Well, you
couldn't
can
with.
see why all this commotion on because there's no stability with your family unit because you
Mhm.
have all your children either in foster care or you're running from the law with them or whatever reason why they're not reporting. I'm really surprised that no one's stepped in to investigate the dog biting or the any other neglect or abuse out in the snow or outside locked up. That's not a way. Those are all easy things for them to follow up on. I'm surprised they're not. That's just. Do they not believe it's taken place? Is that what the problem is? That the
Yeah,
credibility?
they told us that we need to stop calling in. There's no abuse going on there. This is from the caseworker.
Yeah.
um They're fine there. Everyone's happy. I spoke to them. They just didn't see a problem. We've reported every single thing every time. Then they got to the point where they said that we're not allowed to talk to our children at visits, only to enjoy our visits with our children. Like, so if they had an issue or something, they weren't able to talk to us. Everything had to be set up in therapy.
Wow. Wow. So, um, have you learned anything from this? Like, can you maybe tell our listeners what we should do to avoid this? Not having less children, but something. I
um, I think what we've learned from it is not to talk to them at all.
right.
Literally, don't give them any information.
You don't have
Uh,
to, by the way. You don't have to. Now they can come and talk to the kids at school without your permission. They
yep.
have a right if they're at school. They can talk to your kids, and they say the reason why we don't want the parents involved because the parents will coach them. And I say, wait a minute. CPS coaches, I know they put ideas in those kids' heads. They tried it with my older son, saying he's better off not going to private school. He's better off going to the public school, and that we can help him learn banking in school, where he's taking calculus. I mean, he wants to be a robotic engineer. Banking 101 is not going to help you that. I mean, they say, we can help him open a bank account. We already has a bank account. I opened that up when he was 15, and and he's 24 now. But it's just the rationality when they use that is so archaic because we as parents, I'm very involved with my kids, always have been. Boy
Mhm.
Scouts, Girl Scouts, now it's called Scouting, and then the AYSO soccer, and then my youngest son who is just turned 18, uh, played varsity football. It's all 4 years at the private school, and he thought it was great. I mean, they end up winning the national championships, and they are the number one football. And he's got buddies that have gone off to Alabama, Michigan, every college you know of. There's more football players than any other. This high school produces more football players than any other high school, and
Mhm.
so um, you know, uh, as a parent, you want to be involved, and it sounds like you're involved there. The only is is that was this 15 this child that first reported the sexual problem, and then the other children. What were some of the other allegations that the other children were put in foster care? Why was that?
They just took everybody. They used the medical neglect to take everybody. Um,
Because of the type 1 diabetic?
yeah, they used that as the for the emergency request to take them through the courts.
What is does the other children are type 1 diabetic?
Nope, no one has no illnesses other than him. They just used that to
Oh.
remove all the kids and the inadequate supervision, which wasn't even at the house.
Inadequate supervision. Where were they if they weren't at the house?
When they used the inadequate supervision, we were at the hospital, but because I couldn't bring the two babies in
Oh,
the
you're having the babies there and stuff like that. Well, where was the adult person watching the other babies? Where were they?
it the father's he's always gone working. He works during the weeks.
Okay, there's the mother and father, but did you have grandparents that watched the
Oh
young
no,
ones?
no. I'm the only one here, and we live in a small town, and I don't. The only relative I had was 80-year-old great aunt,
Oh boy.
and I don't have family or friends here at all. Like, we stayed in our house.
Well, when they were so you're in the hospital, then you're going to have to get a babysitter or somebody who's over the age of 18 to watch them.
Oh yeah, well, everyone was in the other kids were in school at that time because it happened at school. He had went into school sick.
Okay, they're in the school. Okay, so
But the
why?
two younger ones was 1 and 2 at the time.
Oh, okay. So the 1 and 2 would have to be taken care of by a
Mhm.
daycare center or something like that.
Well, you don't have time to do that when you get a phone call saying, "Hey, your son's sick. Come pick him up." So
When you say your son, not your two young ones, but an older child, right?
yeah, he's the second, the type 1 diabetic. He's my second child.
So when you went to go pick him up, you had your other two children with you in the car when you're picking up the type 1 diabetic, right?
And I also had my oldest son with me.
Okay. The problem is that the 15-year-old is not old enough to watch this. That's the
Right,
problem.
right. Well,
Yeah.
that's what I tried explaining to the hospital. I said, "Hey, do you guys have someone to come out here and watch the kids, or you have somewhere I could bring them inside?" I'm like, I
Well,
can't leave them out there.
you should have brought him inside, is what you should have
It was
done.
COVID. They turned us down. They told them they can't be inside. So
Oh,
that's when I called my mom and I asked my mom to come out here,
okay.
which is 2 hours away. So I had to wait for her. Um,
And
so
meanwhile, you're
in
having a baby, didn't know when it was going to come. I mean, did your baby come faster than you were told by your doctor? Or
Oh, for the new one, so actually she was pretty late. So
okay,
we had our visits with our kids at the end of the week, Sundays, and I just like kept my fingers crossed that I didn't go into labor and have to cancel a visit so they didn't get suspicious. I actually went to the other state and went and seen a different doctor, and I'm like, this baby needs to come out like now. And so it was kind of
oh
planned.
boy.
So
Well,
I was
when
in.
you plan the baby to come, can you make plans for the other kids to be watched or not?
Well, at that time, no, because it was a spur of the moment where I had to pick up my son. Like they
Okay.
just called and said I had to pick him up. But as far as with the new baby, like everything was, the kids weren't home still, so I didn't have to have any planning with the other kids. Um, only the oldest was sent home because he was having the most trouble in care. So they sent him home because he was just kept getting in trouble and trouble, and it's because he said he wanted to come home, and so they tried it as a trial and error, and they sent him home. So I only had, and he actually went to the hospital with us when we had the baby. He was in the waiting room, so it was pretty planned out well to get
Okay.
away with everything.
Well, yeah, it does. But now you have this new case on, and you're being charged with neglect of your younger children while you're having the baby, and your new baby they tried to track down, but they never were able to get your new baby.
Hmm.
Now, where's that new baby? Is that new baby with you still?
Yeah, she's with both of us, the legal guardian and myself, because we have court papers basically stating that there is visits with the baby. So we use visits when she's with me. There's nothing set in stone of like how often I get to see her, how often she gets to be with me. But we just keep the legal guardianship for protection, basically.
Now, the legal guardianship is that by another foster care family or what?
Nope. That was privately done through the court system by us, and we hired an attorney to do that in the other state.
Well, is that person a friend of yours? Is that who has legal guardian?
It's my aunt.
Oh, okay. So your aunt has legal guardian, and so that protects that child there. So what do they want to do? I mean, are you in an investigation period, or you have a trial date coming up, or what?
No, we're in the investigation period right now. But they're fixated on the baby, literally. Like, why do I have her?
Well, you
Um,
don't. You told me she is a legal guardian. Do they
no, I
recognize?
mean in my care. Like, why do I have her right now? Like during a visit or
Oh,
something.
you have monitor rights. Does your legal papers show that?
Yep.
Do they? Have you given them the paper and said, "Look at my paper. It says I have legal rights to see my child."
Well, we told her all that, and but she thinks that the investigator thinks that it's just weird that I won't allow her to see the baby or know that she's here or
Oh, that's because
anything.
they want to take it.
Hmm.
You've told her that it's for her own protection because you'll take my baby. You need
Yep.
more money. You need more money. Their problem is they need money. I mean, it's my caseworker was very young, very inexperienced, had no family things, and all she was interested in is hers and her new BMW or whatever. It's funny how money really controls things. I mean, I met the guy, the dog, at our place, and our place was a Taj Mahal of child protection services. I mean, it's excessively ornate, excessively, you think the money could be spent on our children, or on the service. Instead, they put it all into this beautiful building. I mean, it was glass, state of the art, and he was worthless, and so was his supervisors and manager. I went from the top to the bottom. I went both ways. I went from the bottom to the top and then top down, and I got nowhere with them. They're very disgusting individual people. They lie in court. I don't know if you've
Yep.
had experience in court, but they lie in court, and they under oath too. And
Yep.
we caught them in the lying. I have a lawsuit, a civil lawsuit that could sue them for my rights were violated. I have, certain rights that were not permitted to me and stuff, and the social worker lied and cheated, and it was it was terrible in my case. I mean, it was where my wife's side of the family made allegations that weren't true, and then they tried to adopt our children, which is really unheard of. I mean, I said, "How would you feel if we adopted your children or whatever?" And just it's I wish in a case there'd be somebody you could trust that do family reunification. Their emphasis was not money. Their emphasis, well, can we get the family back? If the parents have drug problems, well, we give them an education class. Or maybe there's a way we can work things out. It should be a last resort. They go into group home or foster care or be adopted, and it
Agreed.
should always be a last resort. It's like there. In fact, I feel if you get an investigator, get involved, you should have once a week meeting with the social worker, your children, all your children, not just one or two, and the parties that may be representative, the therapists or any attorneys, to meet and talk and discuss things. And if it gets volatile, then you just do timeouts. And our Congress does it all the time. We discuss how to finance the war, how to do the border, how to do this or that, and so this thing about where they do alienation. In my case, our children were stripped from us in a group home. They're told to put their hands aside, not to love your mother and dad, not to show any affection to them. And then anytime we saw them, they always would come up with some story. Well, you said this or this to your child. I said, no, I did not say this or that. And uh, ended up being you were just fighting these. I was Alice in Wonderland in the rabbit hole. I was. That's the way I describe my involvement with
Hmm.
CPS. Just think of the story of Alice in Wonderland, and think of how she fell in the rabbit hole, and she ended up going through all these mazes and all these wrong turns. That's exactly how CPS. And I would love to hear any of you listeners out there, by the way, if you have a good one or a bad one or whatever it's called, but I've yet to hear a good story. And by the way, make sure you call in at 888 to share your story. And I'd love to hear from you. Also, if you need an attorney, this is W. Davis, who sponsors this broadcast, is a licensed family law attorney, and he is a trial attorney, and he would give you an hour or 30 minutes to an hour to talk about strategies, how to fight CPS and how to win. He can fight CPS. He's done civil lawsuits against CPS and won. So he has that capability. So make sure to call in, and also that's the same number used to schedule an appointment. Anyway, go back to your case, Amanda. Um, uh, you are because right now we have about 12 minutes left, which is good. What is your game plan right now? Where you at? What's your game plan?
We really don't have none. I know we're expecting her to return, the investigator. I know we were just out on break for Christmas, so the kids returned to school today. So I think that's what she was waiting for, to go up to the school and talk to the kids. The only thing that we told the kids is like, you know what? I know they're going to call you down. Be prepared. Um, I'm like, just tell them you're not for hire. You're not going to help her in her investigation.
Yeah, that's sad because they're going to try to put ideas in your kids and try to hear something that your kids may say something. And in fact, I would tell you, I mean, tell the kids that they don't need to say anything. They can, they're allowed to sit there and face to face, but they can sit there with their hands folded and not say anything. Play a game called silence.
Yep.
Zip their mouth.
I did tell them that too. I'm like, if you don't want to sit there and tell them you're not going to help them in their investigation, just don't say nothing at all. You don't have to. No matter if the principal or social worker or anybody says anything, no matter what they say to you to convince you to talk, you do not have to answer anything.
Right, and say that if they do, just say, "I need my attorney. If my attorney's present, we can talk." And just
Yep.
say that. And they don't want to hear an attorney because there are good attorneys out there, and those attorneys know how to stop this foolish nonsense thing. We have another thing that I forget. In the courtroom, there's a judge assigned to the case, and that judge, I hate to say it, at least in California, they're elected official, they're not appointed, but their backgrounds are terrible. Like mine was dealing with collisions and how to deal with car repairs. Now, how's that guy going to know anything about family reunification? He wasn't even married or had a family. So I
Yeah.
think we as voters, and it's coming up now, we're at the preliminaries right now, but come time in November, you need to pick a judge and look at the judge qualifications, and one of the judge's qualifications is he should be some type of a family lawyer with experience in child protection services, and that's the guy you want because in our case, our judge did nothing. He went along with the other attorneys. The other attorneys were public defenders. They're terrible. They have 20 cases. They don't have enough time. And then in my halls, and I'm talking about Orange County halls, the courtrooms, there's standing room. There's no sitting. It's like, and you don't go in the courtrooms, by the way. They don't allow parents in the courtrooms, and I think they should. And I think you should be able to sit and see everything that takes place. And if you say something or cause a commotion, then you're asked to leave. I can understand why you'd be banned from the court, but you should be given that opportunity. They don't.
Mhm.
And they bring you in maybe once in a blue moon and say, well, this is what I found about you. You're a bad parent, and you can go get lost. I mean, I never heard anything positive from that judge. That judge was a mean man, and he had golf with the social workers, and he had dinners and stuff. So they're all bribed. They're all working not for the public.
Yep.
They're not a public servant. They're working for the money, and I wouldn't be surprised if they got a kickback for the money because they get bonuses. By the way, Child Protectors gives bonuses to the workers if they're able to get them into foster care and keep them as long as they can till they're 18. So
We pointed that out to our caseworker at the time. She went on vacation awfully a lot, and I'm like, "Oh, it's that time of the year. You go on vacation, making that money off of our kids, huh?" And she's like,
right.
"No, I don't make that much money." And like, I looked it all up. I looked up her pay and everything, and we pointed it out to her, and she's like, "That's not true. That's not accurate." And
Was she a
she
mother herself? Did she have a family member? Was she a mother?
no, she wasn't a mother.
So what
It,
what kind of authoritative figure does that tell you when you have somebody? It'd be like somebody who is teaching physics that all it had was an art background. You think that guy should teach physics? No, he has to
no,
have physics background. You
yep.
think you think a guy that drives a school bus should fly a fighter jet? No, he has to go and get trained. I mean, we all have training. I mean, a nurse or doctor. Do you think a librarian could be a good nurse or a good doctor?
We actually
No.
brought that up. We told them, I'm like, why don't you guys take these parenting classes? You don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, you're making us take them, and you don't even know what you're doing. I'm like, take them with us.
Yeah, yeah. You're right. Anger management, the parenting classes, and how to
And we
raise older children, how to raise younger children. They're good ideas. There's nothing wrong with it. There are parents that need that. It
we
isn't.
still
Yeah,
we still actually continued the with our counselor that was provided by DCFS. We still see her because we actually took a liking to her, and she, even though she was appointed by DCFS, she wasn't with DCFS. Like, she didn't agree to like what they were doing, and
yeah,
they caught on to with her um what are they called? Reports. They
Yeah.
didn't like how she written
Well,
them.
they're gonna drop her is what they'll do. They
Oh
only
yeah,
want
they
people
left
to
her
do.
out of the loop. They
Yep.
left her out of the loop, and we had to push for meetings and everything with her included because they left her out of the loop, and they only did meetings with the two older girls as counselors. They only put the two girls in counseling because they know that those two were vulnerable and would talk, and they pretty much had our girls spying on us during our visits to find anything out, like if we're doing anything wrong, what's going on. Like they we didn't even, as sad as it was, we didn't even tell our other kids what the baby's name was. um
Wow. Wow.
and they knew that they had a little sister. They asked when she was born. We couldn't give them that information. And so our now 4-year old actually grew up calling his sister Jane Doe because that's
Yeah.
what it was written on the paperwork as baby Jane Doe. And so when they asked what her name was, we're like Jane Doe. And so that's her nickname.
Yeah. Yeah. That's sad. Now, how many years has it been going on? 10 years or 5 years or what's?
Now, since 21, I believe, I want to say it 20 or 21, it's been going on. They were in 2 years of intact and then 2 years in care. And
Okay.
then we had the 6 month aftercare, and then now the new investigation.
Wow. You've you've had a lot of babies and a lot of experience, and you only have like 3 years of this. This is amazing.
Hmm.
So
It
it's
just never stops. So we learn as we go. I went to the extremes of putting a sign on my door with no soliciting. I'm like, any government official will charge $50 an hour or $50 a minute. And I'm on camera talking to a caseworker. I'm like, do you agree to those terms written on the board? And she's like, no, I don't agree. I'm like, well, you know, like that was a $600 fee I could have racked up with DCFS if I knew how to legally submit an invoice. And
yeah, yeah,
so now, like, we're the laughing stock of the agency. So when they want to come out, the caseworker's like, beware of her sign, approach her this way, don't come at her aggressively. Like they constantly talk about us to where, I sometimes reach out to the caseworker because, believe it or not, she wasn't a bad caseworker. I mean, we've caught her in a few lies, but she was decent overall. Like, we
Well, a
tell
lot of
her.
caseworkers, they're hard. I mean, you have to think about it. When they first apply for that job, I don't think it's a job that people want to be honest with you,
Hmm.
especially if you know the horror stories and what it is. And then first, they're probably duped into believing that the agency's goal is family reunification. That's
Yeah.
this word unification is so broadly stretched by them. It's like the people at the top are the ones collecting all the big bucks. I
Yep.
mean, eh, be CEO of a child protection branch of social services, that annual salary is almost a $500,000, which is ridiculous because, yeah, attorney, a doctor,
Hmm.
but school teachers and policemen should get paid a lot more than they get paid. And to be honest with you, social workers make more money than a school teacher or a policeman. I mean, it's just like, that those two jobs are thankless. I mean, a teacher, most good teachers will give you more than 40 hours a week as teaching. They don't work per hour. They work, to get the job done. And a lot of them work on the weekends correcting papers or at nighttime and stuff. So if you track all their hours, they definitely give you a lot more. And policemen
Yep.
the same way. They come in, do the shift, and they have to listen to all the trash that people tell them. Police officers, I admire them. They're good. Yes, they're a bad policeman, just like there's bad this people. And yes, there's bad social workers. The problem being is that it's so common now, and maybe it's only because people are speaking out against them. But I've yet to hear anybody call in and say, "Hey, I had a great time with family reunification. It was alleged they were proven wrong, and I got to see my children this time. The plan was to stay at our home, and we get once a week, things." I don't hear those stories. I do
Nope.
not hear anybody out there. But
No.
I think we're at our time that we're going to be signing off here. I hope, Amanda, that you can call in anytime you would like and a chance to talk some more and share with the readers of your experiences and all your readers out. The thing I learned from Amanda is do not say anything to any of the social workers. Have an attorney who will give you strategies that does work. And, also, you do not want to have children where you're going through social work. I'm not trying to tell abstinence or do any kind of birth control, but right now the law is if someone's on an investigation and they get pregnant, they have to surrender the child to the state, which is sad because it shouldn't be there. But I want to thank you for giving your time, Amanda, and telling us your heartwarming
Thank
story.
you.
I want you best of luck. Again, the number is 888-888-6582, and that'll get you to the law offices of Vincent W. Davis, who is a licensed professional family law attorney. He's a trial attorney, so he has trial experiences, and he'll give you 30 minutes to an hour of consultation free and how to do strategies to fight CPS and how to win. There is hopefully down the road. Hopefully, in your case, Amanda, that in a couple of years this will all be behind you. I hope you don't still have this on, especially with young children. You'd like to have them involved and so forth there. But
Yeah.
thank you to all your listeners. And this is Bob Pace signing off. Wishing everybody a very happy new year again and much success and much happiness. Thank you.
Thank you.